with me is Petra Hielkema, who's the chair of EIOPA and also is the Fintech champion of the International Association of Insurance Regulators. Thanks for again being with us and supporting us, Petra.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. Thank you for organizing again. I think it's always a very good start of the year to just touch base on where we are on digital. It develops quickly, so there's always something new to say the next year. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. With that, I think maybe let's start with artificial intelligence, one of the big themes at the beginning of this year. What do you see as trends in the area of artificial intelligence in the insurance sector? And also, as we're seeing more and more use of generative AI, how do you think that's evolving?
Yes, well, this is something we really monitor carefully at the EIOPA and also at the international level. I'm not sure I shared it on social. I was struck actually by one of the postings by the World Economic Forum, who listed the 5 professions that will be impacted most in a positive way, by the way, so augmented by AI. And on number 1 was insurance and insurance underwriting. So in a way, a positive message of AI actually enabling better servicing of insurers. Maybe not surprising, considering that this is the part of the financial industry that really works with data, and these are tools to actually manage those data. So our expectation, not surprisingly, is that AI will play a pivotal role. Now we monitor that. I said we did. Unfortunately, cannot yet share the final results. We come out in March, but we did a survey with the industry. Big thanks to everyone in industry who responded to that. A lot did. Last time we did it, 2019, we saw that a third of the participating undertakings were using AI, and another third was in proof of concept. What I can share is that way over 50% is now indicating they are using it, and hardly anyone is not involved at all with AI. Where is it used? I think that is the second question. What we always say, and that is true, is the entire value chain of insurance. But to make them more specific, because we have more data now, is what we see is so far mostly used in the non-life insurance part more than in life. And then you need to think about claim management, streamlining processes, speeding up processes, improving customer satisfaction. On the one hand, very much improving efficiency in the background within the insurer, also hoping that will bring ultimately a competitive benefit. AI also enables insurers to develop more accurate risk assessment by processing much larger data sets than before, such as satellite imagery for whole insurance underwriting. So we really see that it's not just used to make a existing process more efficient, but it is also used to expand the amount of data involved in the assessment. Now, where are the limitations? Unpredictable. I think we saw that last year, generative AI coming out, being commercialized very fast, and really, I think the big introduction of pre-trained foundation models, and they definitely have a potential to become mainstream in the future. And for sure, you see particularly in-house already insurers also making use of that tooling to also help their staff go through the information they have within the company and find it as soon as possible to be efficient again. Still in the making use of it, learning to use it phase, but important. Now, if you look at generative AI, it can be used to improve chatbots. We see that it can help to improve recommendations to consumers, but it can also help actuaries to reduce the time they need to reach conclusions. And maybe potentially in the future, they could even help to do regulatory reporting, but we are not there yet.
Well, yeah, I could make comments on Solvency II and reporting and how the two things link together. But I think your point about generative AI and its impact also on marketing documentation to customers is interesting. I think we might come back to that in future conferences. But I mean, as we speak, also the Artificial Intelligence Act is about to be formally signed off on.
Yeah.
It's a horizontal piece of legislation. How do you see that impacting the insurance sector and the regulatory agenda on AI?
Yeah. Now, I think the AI Act, as it is now, first of all, is very welcome. I think it's important to have a focused regulation, supervision of the use of this tool. I appreciate that is horizontal. We all know, and with we, I mean the insurance industry, we all know that came with some challenges because it was horizontal. The scope of how insurance was included as a high risk was really large. Now that has been reduced. Pricing and underwriting in life and health insurance is still high risk AI, but all others are still in the other risk category, and therefore will result in the normal line. Our line of supervision. But particularly for pricing and underwriting in life and health, there will be a need to comply with the requirements such as that are foreseen in the AI Act. What I think is an important step, and that is part of the final part of the negotiation, but I think it's good that they that the EU institutions actually made the effort to respond also to this new development of the general purpose AI systems, and including ChatGPT. And I think it is good that also the AI is reflecting potential building of how we can supervise that. And here it is important that we will have a European Commission's AI office that will look at critical third-party service providers from a generative purpose AI system perspective. Now, that's a lot of difficult words, but what it is that you will see that some of these tools will also be provided by critical third parties that in itself could be a risk. And here we've learned from Dora and learned that it's important that you do not only then address this risk through the licensed entities and the outsourcing they do, and we have a lot of powers there we can supervise, but you also can go directly to these critical third parties and make sure that risks are taken care of. And that is now organized through this new AI office at the European level. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, the remaining uses of AI in the insurance sector, including the non-life insurance lines that are not included in the scope of high risk, of course, will stay in normal supervision. Now, if you allow me, normal supervision, and what I mean is the NCI supervising insurance and EIOPA at the EU level, working on convergence and stepping in when there are issues. How will that work in the context of AI, particularly if you are not a high-risk part, so all the others? What you'll see is at the EU level, there is this AI board. At the national level, there will be the competent authority. But what I'm very happy about is that also here, our feedback was included in the AI Act, and the insurance NCAs are expected to continue to be responsible for the supervision of the use of AI, as we already are today. We very much therefore also welcome the explicit reference in the AI Act to IDD and to solvency too, with the respective areas of competence. And here also there is a role for EIOPA. Now, some of the work that we did on AI, we paused in waiting for the AI to be clear about its scope. But now that we have that clear, it will be important for us to also see where additional guidance is needed for the use of AI in our industry. Where are gaps and where are overlaps? Do we need to deal with that? And meanwhile, we will continue to train our supervisors. I'm very happy with the Supervisory Digital Finance Academy going into its next year. We have many supervisors joining there for a base course and then a dedicated AI course. We also organize AI workshops. So I think finally, what about the international level? You mentioned it. I do chair the international work. Also here, AI is the area where we will move forward first. And we will be producing application guidance within the IAIS. We hope to come out at the end of the year which hopefully will help to explain what is happening worldwide. That recognizes that the IAIS ICPs not necessarily need any changing. Not a surprise, they're very high level, but they will give some practical guidance to supervisors on how to deal with AI, and they will do so at an international level.
Thank you, Petra. I think it's very interesting because I know a year ago we talked about some of the reports you were scheduling to do, and it's good to hear that those, why they might have been slightly delayed makes total sense. And also we pushed very hard for EIOPA's role and the ESA's role in the application of the AI Act. But I do think we will have to watch quite closely how the horizontal supervisory bodies and the sectoral supervisors act together. You're right, maybe DORA is a good example, but I think there's still some nervousness in the industry as to the interaction between those different bodies.
Yeah, and not only, I would say, not only among the industry, but also among consumer organizations. This idea that with AI, you can be so much more granular and so much more individual focused, and that with that AI in itself is then a computer taking decisions, raises a lot of concerns about exclusions, about discrimination, about unfair treatment, and then having a redress against the computer. I think, and so that is also, I think, why this regulation is being put in place. I think here is a responsibility for the industry to show that already for decades they have been dealing with data, risk pooling, setting the right incentives, and to take measures, but also help consumers. And do that in a fair way, and always be able to explain that because there is a human in the loop. So here I think there is not only an opportunity for the industry, but it comes with responsibility, and that we will supervise as well. But it starts with industry making proper use of AI, and I think then it can really benefit insurance.
Yeah, I think it needs to be human-centric. There needs to be some human element to decision-making. But I think this brings me to a nice transition, which is the second theme I wanted to talk to you about, which is open finance and FIDE, as that in a way ultimately will also rely to a large extent on artificial intelligence and the use of that. So as this legislative proposal is on the table, and you were actually as EIOPA the first authority that did a report on open finance, where do you see the opportunities and what risks do you identify with this move towards open insurance?
Yeah. Open insurance, and I find that FIDE came into being. I'm sometimes at conferences also with supervisors or industry who's explaining that this should not be for insurance, but I think we've passed that station. Actually, I think it's in. So I think my call is that we really need to look at this act, and we need to think about how this act could work. What are the concerns, etc. I do not think it will go away. Let's put it in that way. I also think at the same time that this act came again as horizontal legislation with feedback from lessons learned so far, but very, very bank oriented. And so again, I think it should be on our agenda and on our to-do list to better understand what it is doing, where we need changes, and why. To make sure it fits also to an insurance industry, and also to pensions industry, also my remit, of course. Now, I think what it does is it's really consumer protection measures. I think that is why it's meant for, in the sense that it's not so much the case that we are not already sharing information. I think we're sharing a lot of information all the time. But this act actually says, well, okay, maybe you do that. Maybe you sometimes click and you say, okay, I share this, but do you have an overview of what you're actually sharing? And if you're sharing, but you actually want to stop that, can you stop it? And can you even ask that company to delete everything they have on you? I think that is what FIDE is also organizing. And in a time where we more and more consciously, unconsciously share data, having an act in place that says if you share, it's conscious. If you want to know what you share, you get the overview. If you want to stop it, if you want to be forgotten, you can. I think it is helpful. It can also help on the other end. That's the efficiency. If you have easier access to data, if you have more data, you have more efficiency in design. You can provide better coverage. You can personalize the tools. I'll leave that to industry to look at that. But it comes with a risk. It really does. Because if you have all this data, it goes back to what I just said, you can unfairly charge different prices. And we already issued a supervisory opinion on that. That's a differential pricing on the basis of something not related to the actual risk you're insuring is a bad practice and should stop. But still, this is something to really look at it. And when is it just optimizing or is it a bad practice? So I think this is something to really look out for in this context. There might be reasons that this results in some products being more sold or less sold. So we need to monitor that. Could be an entry again for big tech in the market. And what does that mean? So that is also on our radar as a potential risk. It's essential, going back to what I started with, that the consent that is provided is really given with full understanding that they are sharing and what they are sharing for. And then all the other rules about quality of data, confidentiality, cyber, interoperability, etc. If I can add, I also think that VIDA is really focused on the financials, whereas some of the financials also would like access to other data. The big example is, of course, the data about how customers are driving, and which is with the car industry and not in the financial remit, and therefore not within VIDA. I think we need to think about that too, how that will work going forward. That means that supervision will be essential, and we are working on that. We also looked at, we published our use case on how it could work. Again, not planning to build that thing that we are consulting on, but trying to come up with a concrete case and then assess what is needed for supervision. It's on our websites to get more ideas on that. Maybe very detailed, but maybe interesting for those who are following this discussion. VIDA also states that EIOPA should work on data parameter guidelines, and these guidelines should set out how and for what purpose data in the scope of the regulation can be used in products and services. And I think that will be a big task for us to do. The potential discrimination and exclusions from consumers is increased if new types of data sets from many different sources are used to profile consumers without an adequate governance or risk management around it. So again, first responsibility with the company. But we should keep in mind that when we are drafting such guidelines and we take in account all the relevant legislation, including the IDD, to treat consumers fairly and the requirement to have an adequate product oversight and governance measure in place, I think we already have a lot of tools that, regardless of the technology used to get to a proposition for the policyholder, will be relevant. So yes, we will be drafting those guidelines, and we will look into what we need to add. At the same time, there is already a lot of tooling in our legislation that says technology neutral. Whatever technology you use, you have to be, you cannot discriminate. You have to do a value for money proposition, etc. And I do lean on that also with this new act coming into being. Maybe one final point, is that there is a lot of expectation possibly on how it could help building pension tracking systems. Now, for us, pension tracking systems and pension dashboards is one of our major priorities. We really think Europe needs this. Europe needs to see their pension gaps. So I appreciate it's in. At the same time, managing expectations, the way it is in now will not lead to a full overview, and therefore, again, will be a limited dashboard, not fully indicating where we are when it comes to pension savings. And I think that shows in a very concrete way that even with open data in the financial sector, you should never assume that now the picture will be complete. I think you always need to be considerate of the possible limitations that there are, even if you have more data.
No, but thank you. I think it's important to transparency and cross-border provision, potentially also of services, I think are two very, very important elements that FIDE might deliver. To close, and I know we're ambitious on time, but just coming to cyber insurance and DORA. I know you're monitoring the work around cyber insurance, and there's a debate whether Europe has access to a sufficient amount of cyber insurance. Maybe you could say a few words about what EIOPA is doing there, and then close also on your role in the work on DORA. Maybe some observations on the next steps on DORA. Thanks, Petra.
Yeah. So, well, we look at cyber underwriting. We have done for a while. We're very much aware that there is a gap, mostly because, not so much because the offer, the supply is increasing, but the demand is going up faster, and still data sets are an issue. But on the demand side, we've developed a survey on access to cyber coverage by SMEs. So really including in the scope also now the smaller businesses. We're collecting information on critical aspects and exclusions, terms and conditions. And the survey was launched in September 2023, will run until March this year. But there we want to identify beyond consumers, but also the smaller enterprises doing business in the EU. What is their need? I expect that the need will be a lot larger than what is the offer, but I think this is one way that EIOPA can contribute to identifying the market for cyber insurance and what we still need to develop there. On the offer side, what I think is interesting, I just mentioned this lack of data, is that we will be having new templates in the Solvency II ITS that include a regular reporting on cyber risk, which should allow a good mapping of product clusters and definitions used in the medium and long term. And the first time we will get those reports in is they're applicable for end 2023. So this year, the first reporting should be coming in, and then we will have more numbers really, and more insight in what is happening in the offer side, in the supply side of the market. And again, in the survey on which we will also publish in March, that we did have the digitalization market monitoring survey. There we also have identified information on what cyber coverage is available, how is it with claims, how are claims developing, what is happening in pricing, and to what extent also are we still seeing non-affirmative cyber exposures and exclusions. So with that, I think we will move on. Then DORA, huge project for the ESAs, very important project. Big thank you to everyone who contributed to our consultation. It was very helpful, and we try to also take a lot on board in the final text. We really need to cooperate here also with cyber authorities, and we will also be launching jointly soon, I would say, some vacancies to actually build the DORA team. But we are getting to a turning point, I would say, when it comes to ICT risk supervision in the EU. And we have harmonized cross-sectoral requirements. 20 different types of financial entities will have to comply with the same set of rules. It's a lex specialis, overrules. There will be a level playing field for supervisory powers. That's helpful. And there will be a broader concept of an ICT third-party service, and those also will be under oversight. Plus, mandatory threat-led penetration testing, clearly helping us to not only know individually how good an entity is, but also how good is the group, I think will happen. And so I think going forward, we will continue to deliver on the final text that we need to do, including the developing the actual oversight and how we are going to do that at an EU level, building the team that we need to have jointly with the ESAs to actually do the supervision, and very much doing that with the other NCAs who are also gearing up to be ready to not just have the text there, but then to put it in practice.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We could go on for so much longer. And I know kind of time is always the constraint. I think I look forward to touching base with you hopefully next year again when DORA's also entered into force. Do take note very interestingly of the link you made to artificial intelligence and third-party providers' responsibility in that context. Thank you so much for being with us today and speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.